Good morning, happy Monday, guys. Today's lesson, essential question is, how can you find the whole in a percent problem? Example 1. Bree scored 90% on her test. Out of the total possible points on the test, her score was 135 points. How many points were possible on the test? So if you notice, we are given two numbers. Her score her score 90%. Her score, the 90% came from her getting 135 points. So 135 points is what she was able to get correct, which gave her this grade. So did she get all the questions correct? Well, no, because then it would have been 100%. So did she earn all the possible points? Well, no, because 90% is this many points. So that means that there is something missing. The total possible points. Well, how do we find that total? Okay, so one way that the book shows is by using an equation, which I'm going to explain right here. So let's move over. So if you notice, right here, I'm going to point something out. 90%, so there's another way to rewrite this question. 90% of what number? The what number represents the total. So 90% of some big total is 135. So these two are your parts. So remember, of, when it's in between a percent and another number, it means to multiply. But in this case, we don't know what the total is. So we're going to find the total. And how are we going to do that? We are going to set up an equation where we start with the percent, and we're gonna multiply it to P. Or I guess in this case I'm gonna put T since the total is missing. We're gonna multiply it to T, which gives us 135. So 90% of what number? Well, remember when of is in between two things we multiply, but here it's a variable because we don't know what we're going to multiply. So, but in algebra, remember, we're able to multiply a percent to a variable. So 90% times T, we just put them together. But remember, when we multiply percents, we have to either change it to a fraction, right? 90% means 90% means out of 100. Or if I move the decimal twice, 1, 2, right? The rule is to move the decimal twice to the left, and that makes it a decimal. So 0.90, 90 hundredths. So the choice is yours. Are you going to use a fraction or a decimal? Well, I like decimals better. So I'm going to go ahead and move over. So I'm going to take my decimal, 0.90. Remember, it's being multiplied to T, so we got to put the T next to it. and it's an equation. I need my equal sign, and I need the part that was given. So now I'm going to ask myself, what's the opposite of multiplication? Well, the opposite of multiplication is division, and the opposite of division is multiplication, right? So I'm going to use a fraction bar because a fraction bar means division. So I'm going to divide here by 90 hundredths. Whatever we do to one side, we must do to the other side. Okay, so here, my 90s, the 90 hundredths, they cancel, which only gives me t by itself. Well, what is 135 divided by 90 hundredths? Well, guess what? What a lot of you love, long division. So my numerator goes inside the box. My decimal number goes outside the box, and the rule is whenever we divide by a decimal divisor, we'll move it 1, 2. Whatever I do on the inside, I must do to the outside. Remember, whole numbers have the decimal at the end, so that means I'm going to put my decimal now so I can see it, and I'm going to move it 1, 2, and I put my zeros. So now I'm dividing 90 into 13,500, right? That's my comma, which I guess I don't really need it. I don't want to confuse you guys. All right, so since 90 has a 0 and this big number has a 0, I'm going to go ahead and cancel a 0 from each number to make my division a little easier. That way I'm just dividing by 9. Okay, this is simply a shortcut, only there's 2 matching zeros. One in the outside, one in the inside. So, does 9 go into 13? Yes, one time. 1 times 9 is 9. 13, take away 9, let's count up. 10, 11, 12, 13. Makes 4. Drop the 5. 9 goes into 45. 5 times 9 is 45. You still got to drop that 0. Just because there's a 0 there doesn't mean I ignore it, right? I still drop it and I still divide, which obviously it goes in. 9 goes into 0. 0 times. Well, that 0 got canceled, which means I don't have to drop it down, right? So we are done dividing, which means t equals 150. So my total is 150. So if you notice, remember the part that they gave us in the story? 135. I wrote t for total because it's missing. We're looking for t. So is 150 bigger than 135? Yes. So does it make sense? Yes. So that means that when you do your work, your answer has to always be bigger. Always has to be bigger than the part that was given to you in the story. So I'm going to say this one more time. Your answer must be bigger than your given part that's in the equation. With that in mind, that is your magic word for today. Okay?